Tens of thousands of protesters gathered in Washington, D.C. and cities nationwide to oppose President Trump's policies, particularly efforts to cut Social Security and Medicaid. Trump's appointment of Elon Musk to lead Department of Government Efficiency sparked backlash, with legal challenges arising after DOGE accessed sensitive federal systems. Protesters held signs like "Democracy Not Dictatorship" and "Hands Off," while events were held in both blue and red states. Trump implemented sweeping 10% tariffs affecting nearly all countries, leading to a $6.6 trillion drop in stock market value over 2 days. Critics fear long-term damage to U.S. institutions and scientific research, including cuts to NIH funding, and as the administration seeks to shrink the federal government. President Trump's dramatic tariff hike on April 2nd raised the average U.S. tariff rate from 2.5% to 22.5%, triggering steep market declines and global economic uncertainty. JP Morgan raised its global recession probability from 40% to 60%, predicting U.S. GDP will shrink by 0.3% in Q4 2025, down from previous growth forecasts of 1.3%. China retaliated with 34% tariffs on all U.S. imports, compounding fears of reduced exports and disrupted supply chains. Households are expected to lose $3,800 in purchasing power due to price hikes, while consumer spending and business investments are likely to slow. With limited policy support and rising inflation risks, economists warn of potential stagflation, leaving the Federal Reserve with few tools to counter a downturn. Over 36 business owners from the National Retail Federation and hundreds of restaurant operators met with GOP lawmakers to express concerns that Trump's new tariffs will raise costs and hurt profits. The stock market has dropped 2,000 points in a few days, but many Republicans are still backing Trump's approach, hoping it's a temporary dip. Senator Ted Cruz warned car prices could rise by $4,500 if tariffs stay in place, and said a full-scale global trade war within 30 to 90 days would be disastrous. A new bipartisan bill, the Trade Review Act, now has 7 GOP co-sponsors and could allow Congress to repeal tariffs with a simple majority. Despite some industry optimism, e.g. GM increasing truck production, companies like Stellantis are already laying off hundreds of workers due to tariff impacts. President Trump announced sweeping new tariffs aiming to reshape the U.S. economy by reviving domestic manufacturing and reducing reliance on foreign imports despite fears of economic disruption. The tariffs, the highest since 1930s, shocked global markets, triggering the steepest stock sell-off since March 2020 amid concerns they could trigger a recession. Trump's economic vision is rooted in nostalgia for mid-20th century American industry and shaped by his real estate background, where he views access to the U.S. market as a privilege that should be paid for. While some Republicans support aspects of Trump's agenda like deregulation and tax cuts, many remain wary of the economic consequences and of aggressive protectionism. Critics argue that tariffs reduce efficiency and productivity and point to past examples, like falling steel productivity, as evidence that Trump's strategy may backfire. President Trump is reshaping federal governance by replacing the traditional nanny state with a more authoritarian daddy state, consolidating power in the Oval Office and using executive tools to enforce his populist agenda. Rather than reducing federal influence, Trump is aggressively asserting presidential authority across various sectors, including law enforcement, education, immigration, and the economy. He is using executive orders to bypass Congress and challenge judicial oversight, applying pressure on institutions like universities, the IRS, and even private law firms. While this expansion of executive power has increased Trump's approval ratings, there are signs of political and public pushback, including Republican losses in recent elections and skepticism from voters. Critics warn that Trump's approach may create long-term risks to constitutional balance, prompting some bipartisan calls to rethink and restrain presidential authority before it becomes a permanent shift. Elon Musk has become an influential but controversial figure in Donald Trump's White House, using his unofficial role to push aggressive government cuts and influence federal policies. Musk's presence has created tension with cabinet members and Republicans, with some fearing he could become a political liability after costly electoral losses tied to his unpopularity. Trump values Musk's influence and advice, despite their personality differences, and the two have formed a close bond, speaking daily and often appearing together at events. Musk has pushed initiatives like the DOGE dividend, influenced hiring decisions, and acted as a go-between in sensitive matters like Air Force One negotiations and tech briefings. Despite growing backlash, Trump has defended Musk but indicated his former role will end soon, with Musk expected to return full-time to his business ventures. The Trump administration is negotiating with several countries, including Libya, Rwanda, and Mongolia, to accept deported migrants whom their home countries refuse to take back. This effort builds on a recent deal with Panama, where migrants were detained before being sent to their home countries. The administration is also working on agreements with Latin American nations like Honduras and Costa Rica to serve as asylum destinations instead of the U.S. Stephen Miller is leading the initiative facing legal and political challenges, particularly concerning human rights issues in some partner countries. The administration's aggressive deportation policies, including the use of wartime powers, have drawn scrutiny and legal pushback. A liberal judge, Susan Crawford, won the Wisconsin Supreme Court race despite Elon Musk's significant financial backing of her opponent, signaling a setback for both Musk and President Trump. This election, the most expensive judicial race in U.S. history, maintained the court's 4-3 liberal majority, which could impact abortion rights, union organizing, and congressional redistricting in Wisconsin. Meanwhile, Republicans won 2 special House elections in Florida, though by smaller margins than expected, raising concerns about their voter support. Musk personally spent at least $20 million on the Wisconsin race and has broader business interests in the state, including a legal challenge to dealership law affecting Tesla. The results suggest potential national momentum for Democrats and may prompt Musk and Trump to reconsider their political strategies. Donald Trump's attorney Boris Epshteyn suggested in 2023 that Trump might not be limited to 2 terms, citing unspecified legal interpretations. Trump recently stated he was not joking about staying in office after 2029, reigniting debate over whether he seriously intends to seek a 3rd term. While some of Trump's advisors claim he is merely trolling the media, others in Washington take his comments seriously and fear he may attempt to hold on to power. The U.S. Constitution's 22nd Amendment bars presidents from serving more than 2 terms, though some Republicans have explored ways to amend it. Despite Trump's past denials of wanting a 3rd term, his repeated remarks on the topic continue to fuel speculation and concern among both opponents and supporters. President Trump has finalized a new tariff plan set to be announced on April 2nd, but has not disclosed specific details. His administration is divided between a universal 20% tariff on all imports and a reciprocal system that negotiates tariffs country by country. Trump aims to use tariffs both to generate revenue and as leverage to push other nations to lower their trade barriers. Some advisors support universal tariffs for predictability and revenue, while others favor a negotiable approach to encourage foreign policy changes. The final decision is expected to impact global trade, with allies and trade partners closely monitoring the administration's next move. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink advocates for regular Americans to invest in private assets like real estate, infrastructure, and private loans to improve retirement savings. He suggests expanding access to private markets through better data transparency, technology, and liquidity, making it easier for individuals to diversify their portfolios. Fink envisions a shift from the traditional 60-40 stock and bond portfolio to a 50-30 model, incorporating 20% private assets, though these investments are currently inaccessible to most. He argues that broadening investment opportunities could help address the retirement crisis, allowing more people to build wealth rather than just preventing financial hardship. BlackRock, which manages over $11.6 trillion, has recently made acquisitions to expand private asset offerings, aligning with Fink's vision of democratizing investment access. Scientific research has debunked the myth that vaccines, particularly the MMR vaccine, cause autism, but skepticism persists due to misinformation and past fraudulent studies. Autism diagnoses have risen mainly due to broader diagnostic criteria and increased awareness, with about 1 in 36 U.S. 80-year-olds currently identified with autism spectrum disorder. Genetics plays the dominant role in autism risk, with both inherited traits and spontaneous mutations contributing, while environmental factors during pregnancy, like infections and maternal health, may also play a role. Studies suggest that older parental age, especially paternal age and maternal immune responses, may increase autism risk, though no single cause has been found. While autism can't be entirely prevented, maintaining good maternal health, taking prenatal vitamins, and avoiding certain medications during pregnancy may reduce potential risks. Eric and Donald Trump Jr. are expanding their crypto ventures by investing in American Bitcoin, a mining company majority owned by Hut 8, aiming to create the world's largest Bitcoin miner. The Trumps have rapidly built a crypto portfolio, launching DeFi projects, meme coins, and planning a World Liberty dollar-backed stablecoin, while President Trump seeks to make the U.S. a crypto hub. Hut 8 will transfer 61,000 Bitcoin mining machines to American Bitcoin, keeping an 80% stake, with Eric Trump serving as Chief Strategy Officer. American Bitcoin plans to go public, but will stay separate from the Trump Organization, though future collaboration with World Liberty is possible. The venture aims to capitalize on lower U.S. energy costs to stay competitive, with Hut 8 executives and notable investors like Justin Mateen joining the board. President Trump has not ruled out the possibility of seeking a 3rd presidential term, despite the U.S. Constitution prohibiting presidents from serving more than 2 terms. Trump mentioned that he has been encouraged by many supporters to run again and claimed that methods could exist to allow a 3rd term, although he did not elaborate on those possibilities. In a recent interview, Trump suggested that Vice President J.D. Vance could run and potentially transfer the role back to him as one way to achieve a 3rd term. Democrats have condemned Trump's suggestions, with Dan Goldman accusing Trump of trying to dismantle democracy by attempting to extend his presidency. Republican Andy Ogles from Tennessee proposed a resolution in January to amend the Constitution, allowing Trump to serve a 3rd term, although this proposal would not apply to former President Barack Obama. President Trump decided not to fire National Security Advisor Mike Waltz after he mistakenly added a journalist to a Signal group chat about military strikes, but Waltz's position remains unstable. Trump was more upset about Waltz having Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg's number than the Signal chat incident itself. Despite keeping Waltz, Trump's frustration lingers, and aides have circulated past statements where Waltz criticized him, increasing internal pressure. Trump's decision was influenced by his regret over firing Mike Flynn in his first term and wanting to avoid early disarray in his second term. Waltz's ideological differences with Trump and reminders of his past criticisms continue to create uncertainty about his future.